So can everybody see my screen? Yeah, we all good?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. So yeah, as we said, we just here to talk about AI today. We saw people have a lot of different curiosity. Hopefully we get time to get into the issues. You could go ahead, sound off in chat. Depending on the agency or the relevance of the question, I might take it now or take it afterwards. I'm gonna give a little introduction to AI, and it's a two-parter, so I'll do a bit and then you will see Troy afterwards. Okay, if I go into quickly or anything, you can always ask a question. I will be monitoring the chat. So as our chair said, I do teach in computer science at UWI. Now I don't use AI in my day-to-day. As I said, I do web development and software, but I had to learn about it in my undergrad. So I'm just gonna give a high-level overview. When I mean high level, I mean like not too much detail, right? So it should be understandable to whether you're really technical or not technical. We try to kind of curate this general audience as much as possible. So as I said, I work in computer science. And what is computer science? Well, we really just focus on building algorithms. And I'm sure some of y'all are familiar with the term algorithms. When you talk about YouTube or TikTok or whatever the platform, they always refer to this mystical algorithm. But generally, an algorithm is a set of instructions a computer would do, or even a person to solve a particular problem, get some kind of goal. So like a recipe book is like an algorithm because you follow these instructions and you'll get that goal. So in computer science, we have different ways in which we try to solve problems and algorithms and data structures, the things that we use. And then we have this outset of AI, artificial intelligence. So what is AI really about? Well, it's just one approach to solving these same kind of problem, but we have this overall goal of how do we make a computer behave as if it can learn, right? So we are solving problems in a way that the computer is actually getting smarter or displaying almost human-like intelligence. It isn't actually intelligent, it isn't actually self-aware, but it's borrowing a lot of the things that we see in nature or we see in humans. We try to put it in the machine so it can start to mimic that behavior. So that's a really important concept to come across. So in a nutshell, a big part of AI, and you'll see that across this presentation, is that we want the machine to sort of learn somehow. And when we mean learn, we mean we want it to get some experience it had to be able to perform better at its task. So we'll cover three common techniques. I covered, like when I was studying in my undergrad, I did see the first two, right? And we'll talk about different examples. And of course, our next speaker will go in more details and show you different fun applications. I should talk about them quickly. So it's genetic algorithms, artificial neural networks, and large language models. Now, these are really big, scary terms, but hopefully by the end of the presentation, you'll be a little bit comfortable with these technologies, or I should say techniques. So the first one is genetic algorithms. And genetic algorithms, real simple. Basically, we have a very specific problem that we want the computer to solve. And the computer is essentially going to guess. And it's not going to make one guess. It's going to make like a family of guesses. So like 100 of guesses of how it might approach the problem. So these guesses are generated and then they are tested to see how well they perform. The top performing guesses are then used to breed or generate a new family of guesses. And that's where the idea of genetics come into play. So I'm going to play this really short video. Hopefully you'll get, and you'll see a visualization and get an idea what I'm talking about. So what you're seeing here is that the computer is trying to build a car to go across this track. And the metric for how successful a car is how far it goes, right? The blue car is actually the child, while the red cars are the cars from the previous generation. So what it's doing, going to keep generating a new generation or a new blue car every time with hopes of finally generating a car that can, perform the best on the track. So after, you'll see here, this red car will die. It generates a whole new bunch of cars, and you'll have two new blue cars. Now, these two blue cars are the children of the top performing parents of the previous generation. So the whole idea is by doing this over and over and over, you'll have some baby calves that are really good at performing this task. So I'm just going to go in a bit of more detail here. Oops. And the way it does that is by crossbreeding. So this is why it's called the genetic algorithm. And we know the concept of a gene. A gene is basically the blueprint of someone, all of the properties that make them who they are. So for example, we have two parent cars there that has a gray chassis, a green front wheel, and a blue rear wheel. That is the gene, that is the blueprint of this particular car. Similarly, there's another blueprint here. So when that algorithm is run, the two best cars are then taken from the set and we perform crossbreeding where we mix the properties of the parents to produce the two children. The hope is that the mixing of these properties, the mixing of these genes that you inherit from the parents will actually make you better at performing that task. So that's really the genetic algorithm in a nutshell. We perform, or the computer learns how to get better in the task through these breeding or the crossbreeding of its guesses. So first it starts with a very uneducated guess, but we're measuring all of them. So any off chance that you have two guesses that are particularly good, they should see them across time get better and better as the generations come down the road. So that is the first technique, that is the genetic algorithm and crossbreeding. So moving on to the other one. So this is a really core, I would say, to the AI that we are seeing all day today. This is called an artificial neural network. And it follows, it does something called biomimicry, is where a concept where we try to mimic things in nature. So your brain can be seen as a network. It's made up of a big bunch of interconnected brain cells called neurons. And whenever you have a thought, you're actually firing in a chain of neurons. So we try to take that same structure and then put it in the machine. So hence we get the artificial neural network. ANNs for short are just this network of neurons that are made to solve a very, very specific problem. And it's done that by performing something called supervised learning. So I'm going to go in a bit of detail here. So for example, we may want to have a bot or ANN that can do this very particular task of either identifying whether an image has the letter 3 or an animal that's a bee, right? So say, for example, we have this robot there, I'll call him Robbie. This is our student bot. And first, it's not very good at doing the task, but where the machine learning comes to play is where we perform training. So if you see in this here, the way we do training is that we need to get a set of labeled data, right? Labeled images. So we're going to gather a set of images of these and a set of images of 3s. And what we're going to do, we're going to show it to Robbie and tell Robbie, okay, well, what does this image have? Robbie is going to guess whether it's a B or a 3. If it gets it correctly, you'll say, well done, Robbie. If it gets it wrong, right, we'll kind of crank the gears. So here you see TeacherBot. TeacherBot has the data set. It has what we call the label data, and it performs what we call supervised learning. It's called supervised learning because we actually have the answers to the questions that we're training the robot on. So it's going to go through many different variations in Bs and 3s, and this is really important. You want your data set to be as large and as diverse as possible because it could be many different ways a 3 could be written. And you want your robot to be able to accurately represent it. So here you can see this is TeacherBot here and TrainerBot. TrainerBot kind of getting overwhelmed with the large amount of data, but it's really important that you get a large, diverse data set so Robbie could actually perform accurately. So this will go on for a bit of a while, right? This is done for thousands and thousands, maybe even millions of iterations with a large amount of data. And something really interesting happens. Robbie gets good. Robbie gets really good. I'm going to play this snippet here. I don't know if you can hear the audio. Can you all hear the audio? I might have to reshare. Can anyone confirm if they hear the audio from this video? No audio?
No, we're not hearing
Okay.
it.
Okay, let me reshare. Share sound from here, share. So something really interesting happened.
Oh, sir, someone
Yep,
asked, what is a data set in the chat?
sorry. A data set is a collection of data. So for example, this here, where we have a collection of images of bees and a collection of images of trees, right? So a data set is a collection of data, is data, more or less the same. And you can see in these different platforms, the different ways in which we collect this data. Sometimes it's from user interactions with our app. And there are different ways in which we can harvest the data, but I don't want to get into that right now. So I'm going to try and play this video again.
From the infinite warehouse slaughterhouse, a student bot will emerge who can tell a bee from a 3 in a photo it's never seen before pretty well. But how the student bot does this, neither the teacher bot, nor the builder bot, nor the human overseer can understand, nor the student bot itself. After keeping so many useful random changes, the wiring in its head is incredibly complicated, and while an individual line of code may be understood and clusters of code's general purpose vaguely grasped, the whole is beyond.
So something really interesting happens. If your training set or your data set used for training is good enough, your robot is actually able to correctly identify images that it hasn't even seen before. But it has some caveats. If the image is too different from what it knows, then it might make some mistakes. So you can see an example here. Robbie is doing really well with the trees, but until it comes across a 3 that's upside down, it has no idea what to do. It has never seen such a piece of image in its training steps. It doesn't know how to identify it. And sometimes you get something called overfitting, where it confidently jumps to answer that's actually wrong because it's seen a particular property too many times and made the wrong correlations. So it saw something that kind of looks like a bee, but we all know it's not a bee, but it 100% says, yep, that's a bee, right? And to be able to get around these issues, it really depends on the quality of the data that you have. So that's why companies are really much interested in gathering a lot and lots of data, because the more diverse data sets they have, the better performance and accuracy of Robbie. Now, these images and this video is pulled from a really, really great video that goes into more detail, and I really recommend that y'all check out. This from a channel called CGP Grey, how AI is like ChatGPT learns. So that's how artificial neural networks work in a nutshell. We have this labeled data set. We perform what we call supervised learning, and from the data set is able to perform that very specific task really well. Although there are some caveats and limitations due to the actual data set. So lastly, I'm going to look at one more technique in AI. This is called large language models. Now, these are artificial neural networks as well, but they're mainly trained on text data. I just remember something. Before I leave ANN, I actually have a quick demo for you all. I'm going to go to this over here. Right, so here I have this quick draw, and this is an artificial neural network that's trained on hand drawings, right? So it should be able to recognize a hand drawing. And the way this game works is going to tell me to draw something, and the AI is going to try to recognize what I'm drawing. If it gets it right, it will then move on to the next drawing. So the way the performance is gauged, it needs to have a lot of different hand drawings in its training set to be able to accurately recognize what I give it. So here I need to draw a coffee cup. And if I need to draw a coffee cup, there's certain properties we look into expect. So I'm going to draw a little circle here. It's going to get to the canoe or pond. But I'm going to add a little base here.
Or swimming pool.
And you're going to realize
or
it's a
bucket.
bucket. Now I just need to add a
I see
little
cup. Oh, I
handle.
know. It's coffee
and then you
cup.
can see it recognize that it's a coffee cup. So this is our ANN. This is a really particular typical task for ANN. It does identification. Let's see if we can get a flying saucer here. So we're going to draw a little top.
I see rainbow.
Draw a little thing like this.
I see
And
bun.
just make it round.
Or bottle cap.
Kind of looks like a hat.
Oh, I know. It's flying
It's
saucer.
able to recognize that's a flying saucer. Okay, now these aren't things that I knew that I need to draw it a particular way. I'm just doing it off the top of my head, and it was accurately recognizing. And that's to tell you, that's just a quick demo to show you what ANNs can do. It can identify things, it can classify things. Sometimes it's done in prediction. It does prediction as well due to that classification. So back to this. Right, so now we're on LLMs. LLM stands for large language models, and they are ANNs like we saw before, but they mainly operate on text data, right? Sorry. And the whole idea of feeding it with just tons and tons and tons of text data is so it can recognize patterns between words and phrases in human language. And eventually we come up with a model that can respond to questions very well. These responses are so good and so in-depth and so helpful, they seem to mimic human intelligence. Now, I don't know if you've been aware, but recently we had OpenAI release a project called ChatGPT, which allows you to chat to the LLM model called GPT. And it is really shake things up because it could do a lot of great things, positive things and negative things. Some of the things was, it's a great productivity tool. It could help you generate code. It could help you write essays, help you write almost anything that you want. But in negative times, people could sometimes use it to like, give me a set of security exploits. Okay, for that security exploit, write me some code so I can hack into this organization. Of course, OpenAI has implemented some changes to kind of reduce that negative use of the system, but it really brings into question the power of AI and how we have to handle it carefully so that we don't come up with some really bad outcomes. So I have a demo of me using large language models. I use GPT-3 almost every day. It's particularly useful if you're coding. But one thing you have to be aware of, you really need the expertise and competence to come along with it so you don't write something or do something that's incorrect. So for example, I'll show an example here. I asked ChatGPT to give me a web code for a rock, paper style application, but as a ping pong. So it's really a ping pong battle, but it really behaves in the mechanics of rock, paper, scissors. It generated the code. And some people really think when they use the LLMs, this is it. You put the prompt and you get exactly what you want and you're off to the road. But that's not necessarily the case. A big flaw or big fallback to LLMs is sometimes they might give you incorrect output. Sometimes they perform something called hallucination, where they actually don't actually give you something that's true. You might ask for who's the inventor of something that doesn't exist. And very often it won't tell you that it doesn't know what it is. It will give you actual positive answer and sometimes give you something that's infactual, right? So it takes a certain amount of competence to actually use the tool correctly. I know personally, there were a lot of concerns with students using this to cheat an assessment, but it really turned out if students didn't know enough to do the assessment without GPT, using GPT wasn't helping them because they didn't have the expertise to perform what we call prompt engineering. So prompt engineering is what I did in the second step here, where I'm able to assess the outputs of the LLM, realize that it's not exactly what I need because I fully understand the solution. If I were to write it on my own, I understand the properties of the problem, and I'm able to evaluate the outputs and tell the AI some further questions to refine the results and get what I want. So this second step is really important to the proper use of the LLMs and actually getting something valuable. Here I was able to refine it, and I was able to get the code for my ping pong battle game. So if I open up this tab over here, this is the same code from GPT. I didn't have to rewrite anything. I copied and pasted, put it in here directly, and it worked just the same. And if I had to open up in this new tab, you could try it out on your own as well. I'll paste the link in the chat. And here my rock, paper, scissors game. When I do a forehand, the computer would randomly choose another option, and then it will calculate the matchings. So forehand, I hit a forehand, but the computer did a lob. The lob beats the forehand, right? Or I could do a backhand. I hit a backhand, the CPU does a lob. backhand beats a lob, so I score a point. I might try a lob, the CPU will do a forehand, I score a point. So it's just a simple rock, paper, scissors kind of random generation game. So I was asked, what language is this? Well, this is web technologies. So I'm using HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. For the programming language is mainly JavaScript. So I was able to generate a game in no time at all through my AI tool, but it really is using the tool along with my own competency to actually get this result. Okay. So next we're gonna do, so I showed you 3 AI techniques. I know I went through them really quickly, apologies. Usually push to give 5-minute presentations, right? But again, if you all have any questions, we'll revisit it. So we looked at the genetic algorithm. The genetic algorithm is all about having the computer first guess, measure these guesses, and have them crossbreed to hopefully create guesses that are better, or sample solutions that are better at solving the problem. Eventually, you will have something, a child solution way down the line that's been bred over and over and over, that's really good at solving the problem, right? They fit in this scope of optimization problems. So optimization problems is where you have multiple ways of performing something, but you want to get the best way. So for example, there might be different routes you could take to get from Port of Spain to like UE, for instance, but there's only one route that will get you there the fastest, right? So you can model that as a genetic algorithm problem, which each route is a child, and you can kind of crossbreed them. The children will have different back roads and may take different alternative side streets, right? And then you measure all of them, and eventually you come with the route that is the fastest. Then we have artificial neural networks. So artificial neural networks is where we try to mimic the brain, and we perform supervised learning, where we get some labeled data to act as our training set. And eventually, when working with the data, the model is able to perform the task more accurately according to the data that we fed it. And finally, we looked at large language models. These are ANNs that work on text, and they're used to help create conversational AI. And they're really knowledgeable on many different things based on the large volume of text that has been fed to it. So I'm going to just start the point on applications. I did show a few, and our next speaker will go into more detail. So where's AI used today in entertainment? Well, it's heavily used in video games. If there are any gamers among the audience, I'm sure you're familiar with AI, where you have these characters that you interact with, and AI, so they basically use AI in video games to control these non-playable characters. These characters can adapt to the player's behavior, making the game more engaging and challenging. If, for example, playing a shooting game, you can train the AI with different difficulties to be really aggressive towards you, to kind of complement your play style in a team environment or whatnot. It's used a lot in virtual reality and augmented reality. So I should talk really briefly what virtual reality is. So virtual reality, if you've seen them before, they usually encompass a headset, and they try to put you in an environment, a digital environment, 3D environment, where you could look around and interact virtually with objects, while augmented reality is just overlaying a virtual environment in our own. So you can still see the world around us, but we are kind of overlaying virtual elements to help you perform some task or some game. AI is used in both methods of entertainment, and it helps you create a more immersive experience where you have environments that could act in really interesting and creative ways and respond to you. AI is used a lot in movie creation. AI is being experimented with the film industry, from script writing, because these LLMs could do that. I asked ChatGPT to write me a love story about a Trinidadian woman, who lives in New York, and it's a Hallmark. And they went and gave me the full script. She fall in love with a pan man, and she decided to leave her job in New York to stay with the pan man and all kind of things. So that was really interesting. It can also be used to analyze scripts, kind of judge them. What the image I have here, they used AI in Marvel Secret Invasion. That opening scene was an AI generated image or opening. So that takes me up to my segment. I will now hand it over to our next speaker, Troy.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mendez.
Back to joking. I think it should be back to joking now. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you very much for an excellent presentation. I'm sure that everyone can appreciate your slides, which were visually appealing and informative, therefore enhancing the overall learning experience. Like we said before, you can forward your questions to the chat, which will be answered after our second presenter is done. And we are also open to any urgent questions that require immediate responses. We now move on to our second presenter, who is no other than Mr. Troy Carrington. But before we do so, just a brief bio on who you are about to hear from. So Mr. Troy Carrington is an educational technologist or instructional designer who specializes in designing programs for adult learners. He has successfully led and worked on projects sponsored by organizations such as the European Union, CARICOM, OECS, PAHO, MOE, and various teacher training institutions across the Caribbean. Mr. Carrington strives for excellence and high quality in whatever he does. This had led him receiving many Service Excellence Awards and the prestigious Principals Award for Excellence at the UE Cave Hill campus. Thank you again, and I will now pass you on to Mr. Carrington.
Hey, thank you so much, Joachim. And I also want to thank Nicholas for such an informative presentation. So I'm happy that everyone is here. And in the next 30 minutes or so, I'm going to see what I can do to either allay your fears or to get you more interested in the use of AI. Before I do that, I want to just have a little poll here, launch a poll. And let me launch poll. So you're going to see a little poll showing up there of your interest in AI. So is your primary interest in artificial intelligence? I know there are going to be a number of ways in which you would want to use artificial intelligence, but your primary, the most important one for you. And so you probably will see a poll popping up on your screen. It's asking you if your primary interest is in teaching and learning, or whether it's on the workplace, or whether it's in recreation and entertainment, fun and games, entertainment. And currently, we have the majority of persons saying that it's, well, I'll leave that till the end. And we'll just push it along some more. So you just want at least 5 more responses. At least 5 more. I'm going to close the poll in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, so I'm going to end the poll and I'm going to share the results with you. So this is what was said here. Majority of persons are interested in workplace. So I guess that is productivity. And certainly teaching and learning, that also comes in. And then primarily, you know, recreation, entertainment, fun and games, etc., etc. All right. So I'll stop sharing the poll, and I'm going to try to address this presentation so it caters to your needs. So I like to change things on the fly so that I can better cater to whatever it is that you want. Given that most persons have said employment, I'm going to give a little slant so it goes towards employment or workplace or productivity. And you can certainly ask questions related to that. All right. So let me share my screen. And a good question is there coming in that we probably might answer at the end if Nicholas doesn't want to answer it right away. When it comes to utilizing large language modeling techniques, what are some things to take into consideration and efficiency in using and designing them? Nicholas, if you want to take it now, you can, or we can probably wait until the end, but it's all up to you. As
I can try utilizing. What are some things to take efficiently? Yeah, there are techniques for using LLM and really impressive stuff. I don't have them offhand, but I saw one when I went to a talk. They have something called one-shot learning, two-shot learning. They basically give you guidelines on how you ask your questions. Like you can, when you asking for a prompt, you actually don't need to make your prompt in one statement. You could actually load it up and tell GPT, okay, well, I'm going to talk about this topic, right? I want you to answer this way. Do not talk about this. Do not talk about that. Here's some fact. And then you can actually say go. And then it's going to bring all your previous questions together and then generate the prompt. And you can do some really impressive stuff. So there are techniques out there for using it. I'll try to look it up and paste it in the chat if I find, okay? Hope that helps.
Okay, thank you so much, Nicholas. And I like the technical and the detailed background that Nicholas brings. So you can always show us I'm building it from the ground up if that is what you want. I'm going to show how we might be using artificial intelligence daily. So you might be looking at all of these icons and you're probably thinking that you probably don't use artificial intelligence based on what is going on out there. When you look at movies such as Megan and Transformer and all of these movies which seem to suggest that artificial intelligence is basically a human being, some human-like person or human-like entity, and it can think and it can do everything as the way a human being will do it, filled with emotions, and it might be a killing machine. In many ways, it's highlighted or shown in a negative aspect. So you're probably thinking that is what is artificial intelligence. But I'm sure Nicholas showed you that that necessarily isn't what artificial intelligence is all about. Maybe you'll use some of the concepts in terms of ANN, supervised learning, reinforcement learning, genetics, etc., all large language models to get to that stage, but we are certainly not at that stage as yet. On your screen, you're seeing things like you might recognize. You see Google Maps, you see Waze, you see Siri, Microsoft Translator. For those persons who may travel or they may have, they have a manual or there's some words that exist on any paper and you need to, and it's not in English, it's in another language, and you can pull out your trusty Microsoft Translator on your phone and scan, and it will convert it to English or whatever language you want. Or you have your Waze or your Google Maps, and it can show you where it is you're going, the quickest route, and it can plot that path for you. And even Google search, where you have predictive text, like you might not complete what it is you're searching for, and it gives you a prediction of what it expects you to search for. And all of those are simple ways in which we're using artificial intelligence, and we probably don't even know that we are using artificial intelligence. Even when you look at things like spell check, that's a simple ways of what persons may call or term artificial narrow intelligence. And when he spoke about the robots and Transformer and all of those things that you see in the movies, that's mainly what persons refer to as artificial general intelligence. So it has a wide range of applications generally. And then when it even gets smarter than a human, But I guess that is when you get the transformer and those things. That's when you get artificial super intelligence, which is said to be smarter, than a human being. Okay. So you probably have been seeing them, and as I said, I'm try to allay some of the fears that you may have, and you'll normally see things like this, and this is a long line of people, and they're being displaced, don't have any job, unemployment being high, and normally persons would quote things from the World Economic Forum, the Future of Jobs Report 2020, which says that 85 million jobs will be displaced by artificial intelligence. But if one were to read that report, it would also say that if you go a bit further, that 97 million new jobs will be created across 26 countries by 2025 due to artificial intelligence. So if you were to subtract 97 minus 85, yes, you lose 85, but if you gain 97, so that is a net gain of 12 million. Persons would mainly focus on the negative aspect of it. And so we question and we think, what is it that we ought to do if we are going to remain relevant? And I'm coming from an education background. There was this futurist, and he would responsible for a number of quotes, and he would say that a teacher who allows technology to replace them should be replaced. So if you as an employee or an employer or as a person will allow artificial intelligence to replace you, and this is given the state that we are at or the level we are at, and I'm going to say we are at, let's say we're at artificial narrow intelligence, trained into general intelligence. And so don't let it replace you. And you wouldn't let it replace you because if you, and this is another quote, that the person who is going to not use artificial intelligence will be replaced by the person who can effectively integrate artificial intelligence. That person remains relevant. And this is true for throughout the years where technology advancements has been concerned. Let's just push on again. Other things that you might have heard is that the AI robot or AI lawyer has been in court, and that is in the United States. And basically, when it comes to things like parking tickets, which is fairly standard and very structured, where you park here at a particular time, did your license contain this, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, a whole set of things that can be easily coded. So the AI robot can easily determine whether you can fight that parking ticket or not. And it goes further for persons here in the Caribbean. There are several things which lawyers may do on a template, which more or less those repetitive tasks can probably be improved by the use of artificial intelligence. So I'm not going to say that it can be is going to completely replace, because as Nicholas said, there are going to be some nuances where the person still has to use their intelligence and their knowledge to be able to discern whether it is going to be accepted by what is being displayed or recommended from the artificial intelligence tool. And more, what this one calls a frenzy, then we realize, or we got the headline that this big tool called ChatGPT was able to pass medical exams and MBA. And it was really a false equivalent, because those exams are going to be under the supervision of invigilators. They were going to be invigilated. But if you have given someone a paper and you give them to take home and they use artificial intelligence, I wouldn't see that as the same thing. So you know the context and what you have to, that is out there, and what it is that you try to combat in terms of the fear, which is natural. But I'm saying, pleading with you that these are a number of fears that persons have put out there. Some of them are quite legitimate. So it's how you can harness artificial intelligence so it would improve your situation or be more efficient and be more effective in what it is that you are doing. And certainly you've told me that work in the workplace is where you'll particularly be important for you. But just a quick background on this ChatGPT, because this ChatGPT, artificial intelligence has been up for quite a while, but this ChatGPT thing by OpenAI has made it particularly popular. And because it can create things very, very quickly. So just to see how quickly it took to get to 1 million users, things like Facebook took 10 months, Spotify took 5 months, the iPhone took 74 days, but ChatGPT amassed 1 million users in simply 5 days. And that is, I mean, now it has been bettered by this thing called Threads, but I don't even see that as the same thing because Threads is a part of Facebook and they already had a membership or base. So how are we going to be able to use this in education and business? Well, I'm just going to show you how ChatGPT works. Nicholas showed you a little bit of that interface. So I'm going to be toggling between the presentation here and the tools. I'll probably show all of them and then I'll go to the my tools. So ChatGPT, as you know, is one that is a generative artificial intelligence. And I probably forgot to tell, but this is just very, very quickly. GPT stands for Generative Pre-trained Transformer. I think if I go back here, you might see that. Yeah, GPT. So that's all of the background. And given that I'm going to go a bit deeper into the workshop and let you see some of the things that can be done, you're not just going to show the theory. Things like Midjourney, Tome, Otter.ai, those are some of the things that we are going to look at today. So let me stop sharing on this end. I'll stop sharing on this end. And I'll show you some of the tools that I have been using and that you can use for productivity. Time seems to be running, but we will run with the time. So I'm going to just share my screen once more. Okay, we have this. Hey, so we go here. This one, first tool up, is called Otter.ai. And this is the tool that allows you to record and it generates voice to text. So let me see if I can, I'm going to probably add someone in the audience. Let me see, allow. So can I add someone in the audience to speak? I'm going to call on someone. I am sharing my screen, and as I use Otter, you notice that it generates from my voice to text. Not all of the text is accurate, but the majority of it is. And this can be used in meetings if you're recording a meeting and you want to have the minutes available, you can use this. But that was my voice. I'm going to call on someone who has joined, Josiah Roberts. Are you able to use your microphone? Okay, so I'm going to see if Jardel, are you still here?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so shoot at it. Give me just say 2 sentences and let's see how good Otter is able to discern what it is you're saying.
Hello, my name is Jadel, and I found that today's session was rather informative, though it was a bit short.
Okay, thank you so much. I'm going to stop here, but you will notice that everything is not correct, but the majority of it can be used. The majority of it can be used. We will have to go in and make the adjustments, etc. So this is a voice to text software called Otter.ai. But if you are part of the Microsoft ecosystem, what I mean by that, I now realize it also got Josiah Roberts correct. I didn't even think it would have gotten the name correctly, but it did. Say you're using, let me just see, if you're using Microsoft Word, yeah, using Microsoft Word. So we're using Microsoft Word here, and Microsoft Word also has a built-in feature which allows you to change from voice or voice to or speech to text. And let me see if it'll work. I hope it works. Normally it would work when I don't have my microphone sharing two apps, but I'm going to try here again. So I'm going to use the speech to text feature in Microsoft Word. Okay, so you can see that it is working, short but sweet. Okay, so there you have it. Something that can also be used in Microsoft Word. Google also has a feature which does that, but given it is productivity, so you're into the workplace, yeah, I see there that it is still a work in progress. Dialects, that is correct. It's better for you to speak in standard English. I don't want to say a proper English. That is now not something that we want to use. And other non-traditional forms, they say our persons may say non-standard English because they heard that one shouldn't say that dialects is an improper language, you know. So I'm not sure it was a diplomatic thing to say, but we are cognizant of that, and in terms of the different accents, etc. And given that it is trained, especially these things are trained on from the US, or British, in many cases, persons from the Caribbean, it may miss one or two of the words when we are speaking, but we are looking at efficiency, we are looking at effectiveness, and I'm certain that if it is that you can speak to your computer and it is able to generate the text, that might cut down on what you have to physically write or physically type. And it means that you can also employ persons. A person might have a challenge with their might not be able to type as quickly, etc., and you're still able to employ a person and they can still be useful. Or you can have, might not have the secretary on hand, you can still have a meeting and it's able to automatically generate the text, and you can probably make some edits afterwards once the person listens to the recording. So we first showed speech to text, and I'm now going to continue with some other tools which I hope will be useful to you. All right, so then there's another tool which is called ElevenLabs. I'm not going to go too deep into this, but what it essentially does is that I could have recorded myself in here in Otter, and then I can upload that. I don't have the time, so I'm not going to show it, but what I can do is upload that, okay? Upload my recording. It should be like a minute. And then I will clone my voice. Now, persons are going to be very timid about that. Why would I want to clone my voice? Well, let's say that you are in the workplace and you want to respond to everyone and personalize your response, okay? So welcome, Jardel, welcome, Joanne, welcome, Damani, welcome, Jayan, welcome, Malik. And you're responding to that person by email or etc. That person is going to feel more connected, that you have probably taken time out to respond to them. But you don't necessarily have to create all of those recordings. You clone your voice, and after you've cloned your voice, you simply type Jardel, Joyanne, Malik, all of those, and you will be able to generate a recording with your voice, calling all of those names, okay? So that's another way in which we can use it. And then we go on to our ChatGPT, which can be used in a number of different ways. And I'm going to show you the ways that you can probably use ChatGPT. And this is one that I did before, so I'm going to combine education and productivity. So this was my prompt: solve x squared plus 5x plus 6 equals 0. I hope that, and that probably is an O that I wrote, but I recognize it as a 0, I think. And it explains how it is being done, factoring out the common factor, and then the solving, and x is going to be -3, x is also going to be -2. And you can obviously verify and check that. And that is indeed correct. So students are able to use something like this. It does give an explanation, but remember that, like what Nicholas showed when he did his coding, that you should have some idea, because it might give an answer that is not correct. So students still need to be able to discern what is correct and what is not correct. And this is what has caused a little challenge. So is this going to be a problem for homework? And certainly you as employers or business people or persons who are employing, you want to make sure that students who are coming from the work, coming from their educational institutions, that they still have some knowledge and they're not relying entirely on artificial intelligence to get things done, because it can hallucinate and it's not 100% accurate. So that was one way in which, and this was a mathematics question. I want to turn over to you in the chat, and I see here, if not, you can, so just answer a question. It can be a question about anything. I answered a medical science question. I've also answered things about rum and the history of rum in the Caribbean. So if there's something that you want me to ask ChatGPT, I can do so now. As you type it in the chat, I'll just go through ChatGPT a little. So with ChatGPT, you have the older version, which is 3.5, or you have the new one, which is ChatGPT 4. We are hearing that there's going to be a ChatGPT 5, but you also have different integrations. And what I mean by that is, so Wolfram Alpha is primarily used for things like mathematics, science, etc. Those type of questions, or it can answer that. Scholar.ai gives you access to peer-reviewed articles. Show Me Diagrams allow you to generate, edit, and create diagrams directly in the chat. For some reason, I have to disable them because it's not working. It's saying it's I don't know if they're updated, and they're probably recognizing that I'm in the Caribbean, and that is why. But before it worked for me, so I've disabled them. But I'm just letting you know that these are some of the plugins which are available, and that once you integrate them, you can generate content. Person said before that it wasn't able to generate references. That is not true. It can generate references. And you would have also seen that it's also able to answer what we might term more quantitative type questions. In the chat, yes, you can use the basic author for free, but I thought someone was going to give me a little prompt that I might want to answer. Anything, and just a little hint, just for your information. It says that the data here is accurate up to 2021, but subject to correction. I'm not sure if it has been updated. So the information that it pulls from, and I'm referring to the technical details that Nicholas gave. So this large corpus of information, of this large data set, it would have crawled and collected everything from the internet and wherever else of 2021 up to 2021. And this is what it's being able to do, whatever it does, that, as Nicholas said, they don't even understand how it's doing it. They sort of understand how it's being done, and give you and respond to you. So I don't want to just use my own prompt. I want to get a little prompt from you. So let me see if someone create a spreadsheet. Let's see. I'm going to try Control C, Control V. Create a spreadsheet with the temperatures Let me see if I can get that. Create a spreadsheet. For some reason, I wasn't able to copy that. Create a spreadsheet containing the temperatures in Trinidad. Let's say 2020. 2010 to 2020 is quite a long time. Let me see what it will generate. Okay, so it just tells me how to create that. It doesn't necessarily generate the spreadsheet. So the good thing about this is that it might have something there which it is unable to access the data. This is ChatGPT, but you can use something like Bing, which will be able to have access, or you can use the next one, Google Bard, that might also be able to generate the information. It wasn't able to generate it here, but that is fine. All right, so it wasn't able to generate it, and I'm happy that it didn't do it, because you can see that there's still going to be some things that you need to get the information for yourself and be able to find those accurate sources of information. Let me see, let me see if there's anything more which has been posted. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to do that. Let me see if I can create. Let's see if it gives me anything here. Displaying the temperatures. This is something which is easy to find, though. Let's see what it will do there. All right, so it doesn't have real time, although 2020 is quite time before that has passed. Something that that might be a bit more useful, create what is causing the rising temperatures across the globe or across the earth? So you might want to change this to this, across the earth. Let's see what it will generate for that. So something like this here is able to generate. So it's saying what was leading to global warming, burn of fossil fuels, deforestation, etc., etc. And as you can see how quickly it is able to generate agriculture, waste management. And so these are some of the ways in which persons are able to use ChatGPT. And so as it related to education, some persons will say that the essay, persons being asked to write an essay or term paper, that is being diminished because a student can easily do this. And as you have seen, it's generated in less than 10 seconds. All right. So this is ChatGPT. Number of other uses that we can use ChatGPT. It can also do things like code. You can upload a file, but you have to enable, there's a little setting that you'll have to enable, which we can look at later. And then we move on to text to image. And this is done on the same OpenAI platform, done in something called DALL-E. So let's say create. I don't necessarily like DALL-E, but I show it because it's part of the OpenAI platform. I'll show you what I prefer. Create an image of a hurricane. Create an image of an earthquake, a natural disaster. Now I'm not speaking anything into existence here, just create an image of a natural disaster in Trinidad. Let me see what it will generate. So as that continues, now it's able to create something. Okay, so this is what it generated. I don't necessarily like what it has, but that's what it's saying for Trinidad. As I said, I don't necessarily like DALL-E. Don't really like it. So I normally use this thing which is called Midjourney. And to use Midjourney, you have to do a big long-winded thing by going on Discord. I'm happy that I'm able to just show and show you create an image of a natural disaster in Trinidad. So this is going to take some time to generate. It's waiting to start. So I'm using this on Discord. So this is basically a server. It is going to generate. So as it generates, and you can see this is me here. As it generates, I'm going to switch over to something else and then I'll come back. I'm not just going to wait. It's at 15%. Moving on to something you're in, whether you're in education or you're in business, you might want to generate a presentation, and this one allows you, this is Tom.app. There are other things such as Slides GPT, a number of other things that are available. So I want to create something though. So I'm going to click on create. And what would you like to do? Create a presentation on natural disasters in the Caribbean. And as this generates, I'm going to toggle back to see what this card is giving me. This should generate fairly quickly also. Let me just toggle back to see what it has generated for me in Trinidad. Natural disaster. Where am I? So here it is. This is what it shows me as a natural disaster in Trinidad. I can then choose to upscale this or make a change of it, but I think I like this one. Oh, sorry. I like U1. And this will also be generated. But these are so it gives 4 images, which you can upscale. So it just gives an idea of what we are able to do. As I said, I prefer this because as you can see, this image is much more realistic than what was done on DALL-E. Okay, and you wanted to generate an image very, very quickly. You might have needed to hire a graphic artist, but you can probably do it yourself and generate an image based on the prompt that you have given. Nicholas spoke to prompt engineering, and it's sometimes how best you can use those prompts, how accurate it is, how specific it is that you're able to generate content that you want, or that you're able to get the images and the responses that you want. Switch back over to Tom.app. I know that I'm running a little bit over, but this is the presentation that it is showing, natural disasters in the Caribbean. Let me see what is generated. Let me see if I can play.
Sorry for the disruption, Mr. Carrington. Can you paste the links for your different websites in the chat, please?
Okay, I will certainly do so. I will do that. I'm just trying to get something here missing. All right, so this is the natural disasters in the Caribbean. You should be able to play. I think I may have to generate this again. Nevertheless, you're seeing that it is able to generate this presentation for me, and it was able to do it in pretty quickly. I see if I add a page now. normally it is able to generate, and you'll be able to see. I'm not sure if they have changed some of these things here. Trying to play. All right, so let me go back to Tome and try it one more time. One more time. Create. All right, so as that generates, I'm also just going to introduce you to two other apps. Just keep on this page because I'm not sure why it does not allow me to run the presentation as I normally am allowed to with all of the images. All right, so I'm not sure why it doesn't show me. It doesn't. It's taking a little while. But nevertheless, I'm just showing you that you are able to generate a presentation. So this is some of the ways in which artificial intelligence can be used. Also, other ways in which we can use artificial intelligence. I spoke to you about Wolfram Alpha. I mentioned Wolfram Alpha, sorry, which deals mainly with the quantitative stuff. I don't have an integration. It isn't working on my ChatGPT, but you can also take a look at it here. And then there are things which allow you, and this is where it gets a bit ticklish and persons are not very happy when you're able to use someone's voice. And this is done in something like DID, and you can have the person speaking to you. Again, if I'm going to look at it from the positive way, as a person who is in business, you can probably have those things being personalized where you're mentioning or saying something and your lips are moving and you're making your gestures are there, and you didn't necessarily have to record yourself. So those are some of the simple ways that we can use artificial intelligence. And I want to end by sharing with you this little tool that if you're part of the Microsoft ecosystem,
Let's take a look at how Copilot in Power BI is empowering everyone to quickly find and share insights. For example, say I'm a sales analyst for a hotel and resorts company. Now, with Copilot in Power BI, I can simply describe the report I want to build and get insights in seconds. Maybe we need a new report to help us understand the profile of our customers, to gain insights into what is driving return visits to our properties. I just describe what I need, and Copilot will automatically analyze my data and create a new report based on my needs. Immediately, Copilot created a new Power BI report that is fully interactive, and I can start slicing and dicing my data to explore deeper. Copilot added the charts and slicers I requested, but also conveniently gives me options to adjust the output to get just what I'm looking for. For example, let's switch to ask for metrics and trends and a slightly different layout. Automatically, Copilot updates the report. Let's go ahead and keep this report page, but it goes much further. I can also ask analysis questions such as, what are the main drivers for repeat customer visits? Copilot responds by adding a new page to my report and uses Power BI's built-in advanced analysis capabilities for finding key influencers for variables in my data. Right away, I can see that customers who purchase spa visits are the most likely to be repeat visitors, followed by those who rented sports equipment. I can easily explore Power BI's key influencer visual further to learn more. I can even automatically see the most significant segments in my data just by clicking. Now let's go back to the first page and finish up our new report. I'm going to ask Copilot to make it look like our existing sales dashboard. Copilot automatically finds and references the dashboard to adjust my report with formatting and layout to match. Best of all, I can still interact directly with the Power BI report Copilot has created. So for example, if I wanted to manually change this line chart to add the reason customers were visiting, it's easy to do with just a few clicks. Let's also change the line chart to a ribbon chart to make the data really stand out. Finally, to make the report even easier for my team to understand, I'm going to ask Copilot to add a rich text description of my data right inside the report. This narrative summary is fully dynamic, and not only does Copilot highlight interesting insights from my data, but it provides citations from where in the report the data was taken. This summary will update every time the data is refreshed, or people filter the report with new insights based on the data. And just like that, in seconds, I've created a report that would have taken hours or days to do manually.
Okay, so I will stop at this point, and we can now entertain any questions, but you're able to see how Copilot is able to use data in terms of a report, and all of those are available on the dashboard, and it generates everything for you based on a prompt. So there's no need, certainly those the need that existed before, where you had to create these reports and had a way of how you're going to query the database, etc., to get your reports. That might not necessarily be the case, as Microsoft is trending towards making it easier by simply using prompts. So I'm going to open up the questions at this point. Joachim, you might want to take over again, and we can entertain any questions that the persons may have, because I've not been looking at the chat, and I'm sure there are going to be several questions out there that persons who are attending would want to answer and have answered. In the meantime, I'll also post the URLs or the websites to some of the tools that I've shown in the chat. So over to you, Joachim. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much again, Mr. Carrington, for yet another excellent presentation. You really captured the essence of the subject matter and presented it clearly. As mentioned before, we will now address any questions forwarded to the chat or from anyone who opts to use their microphone. We have a question from Chanel. I believe she was referring to Copilot. She wants to know if it's a plugin or if it's available on desktop, or would she have to purchase a pro edition of it? For Mr. Carrington.
Thank you so much. Copilot, make sure I'm not muted. Copilot is not available in this region as yet, and it's not available across the board as yet, but it will be. It is coming, but it is not available to everyone as yet. It's only available to selected companies at this point. And I guess that's because they're in that phase of beta testing, making sure everything works, and then it will be released to everyone who has a Microsoft 365 subscription. I'm not sure which version you'll need, but certainly, as you can see there, it will be available. It is coming. Thanks. It is not a plugin. It is part of the Microsoft ecosystem, a feature that they're going to be adding to their Microsoft tools. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The chat is still open to any questions on any of the presentations.
I don't have a question. However, I would like to say thank you, because I'm only here for interest. I'm a senior citizen, and I learned a lot about things I've just been hearing on the news. So thank you very much, gentlemen.
You're very much welcome.
Thank you so much. I didn't even realize I was sharing my screen there. I know that so I'd like to find out though, how do you think from what you've seen, I know this has been an hour and plus short presentation, and it might not have given you enough time to delve in and to interact with the tools, because it's only an hour and we wanted to give you a background of how the tools work, what is involved, and also to give you a showcase. So based on what you've seen, is there something else that you would like to have? Do you want to add something? Is there a specific tool or feature or part of artificial intelligence that will cater directly to you right now, so that we can probably see if we can address it and probably make a suggestion or recommendation? I mean, particularly for me, because I like speech to text, because I as you noticed when I was typing, I type fairly slowly, and I guess I just don't like typing. I just prefer to speak, and if it can do from speech to text for me, I think that works for me. I don't like taking minutes if I'm at a meeting, laboriously taking minutes. So if this can generate the minutes, and I don't know if you recognize, I'll just share with you one more time. If you recognize when I did this thing in Otter, just step back into Otter. Let me see if it does show. With Otter, it is able to discern who was speaker 1 and who was speaker 2. So if you have more than one speaker, it is able to discern who is the first speaker and who's the different speakers. So that is something that I particularly like about Otter. I'm not sure if it is something that you will also want to explore, but it's something that I like. You see Rosemary Maskell has her hand raised, so certainly.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I am very interested in Otter because I am one of those fortunate souls who has to produce minutes a lot. I do like that it was able to very easily identify who was a speaker, because I know, at least in Word, there is that I am aware of that word recording feature. But Otter does it much nicer, I find. Also, Otter was able to get it fairly accurately, because I've found with the Word version, especially our Caribbean accents, it really doesn't get quite a lot of it. And in minutes, more often than not, people do tend to speak standard English. And I was very pleasantly surprised at how Otter was able to kind of get maybe 80-85% accuracy. So where do we find Otter? Is that also part of the MS integration?
No, unfortunately, it is not. It can be bought independently, or if you're using Zoom, it can be integrated with Zoom as part of its transcript and captioning can also be used there, but you'll have to pay for it, unfortunately. It gives you a free version, but I think that might probably be 10 or 15 minutes. It gives you a certain number of minutes that you can use per month or something like that. I'll have to take a look back and see, or you can visit the page there. I'm going to post it there. But similar to you, I find that Otter is very accurate and more accurate than even Word so far to me. So that is why I always show a person's Otter. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
And remember, we are also going to be having an evaluation of this presentation, this workshop, and that link is going to be posted in the chat for you. Joachim is going to do that. I am also going to just post the link to Otter. Let me post it for you now. Otter.ai. There are a number of other tools out there, but that is my preference.
I know that Nicholas would have presented first, and some of the terms or concepts may be rusty in our minds, but was there any questions for him as well at this time?
Well, I actually have a question for Nicholas, although I'm a presenter. So Nicholas, this person said that, you know, we are just at artificial narrow intelligence, and you say we're not quite there at artificial general intelligence. I'm not sure. I would like to hear your perspective on that, and how is it that something like ChatGPT is able to generate responses which are so almost accurate, and is able to do it with the speed in which is able to do it. So you have a more technical background, and you might be able to address that question. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I'll definitely try. Yeah, ChatGPT really is the first example of what we think a general AI could look like. And it's simply because it's just been trained with like a stupidly amount of data. Like they park internet, public forums, books, as long as like it was any public domain, and is knowledgeable on so many topics and events up to 2021, because you know that's where they cut off the data for training. So yeah, it does feel very general, and the way it's able to do that, it feels like, well, to me, it just seems like it's really the data set that all of these AI techniques and machine learning techniques really hinge on the data, and intuitively, to me, it kind of makes sense, because if you're reading enough data, certain terms will appear together often, right? So if somebody's talking about doubles, you must see barrel come up, right? Or you must see channel come up. You won't see dog or cat come up just so, right? So the more data it's working on, the more these themes or these similar themes is reoccurring, because you could probably have like a concept map or a mind map of all the words in the human language, and you can see that there are words related to other words, and the more data it reads, the stronger the connections between relevant words are. And so it makes sense to me, with enough data, it could seem to be very knowledgeable, because again, it's just working on the knowledge of humans. So in a ways, you can kind of see these AIs or ChatGPT as a representation of what the human species knows about. It's like a quick way to query that, because the more often or the more depth it's able to give on a topic just speaks to the volume of content that's available on that topic that humans already shared and talked about before. OpenAI implementation is particularly impressive. I'm really impressed by that one as opposed to the others, because you can see that they did tweak it. And when you talk with ChatGPT, it's almost as at its very it shows, almost, it appears as if it's really empathetic. It can show really qualities of having almost like an ethical background, ethical compass to it. So when you try to ask it kind of naughty things, or like if to do malicious things, it'll say, well, you know, I'm an AI model. I try to be useful, but if you're trying to do these kind of things, I really can't help you out here, right? Or here are the things I can do. And then there's a bit of a cat and mouse. So you have seen ways where people try to game the system. Trying to remember example where it's somebody. So I talked about that example where there was that exploit where I could ask, okay, well, if I know this company is working with this version of this operating system for like the security software for their website, I can then say, okay, well, you're using Node version 5, or go to ChatGPT. Well, list me the top main vulnerabilities for Node version 5, right? And then ChatGPT will list all the vulnerabilities, and then they would say, okay, well then give me code to exploit these vulnerabilities. A really early version of ChatGPT would give you the code. Now it won't give you the code. But then people find ways to game it, right? When ChatGPT says, you know, I really can't get you the code, it's kind of unethical, you might do damage. If you're really smart with your prompting, you can be, oh, no, wait, I'm not trying to do anything bad. Actually trying to make my system stronger. So why don't you give me the vulnerabilities so I can make my systems better? And then ChatGPT is like, okay, here you go. And then give you the code anyway, right? So it's a bit of a cat and mouse. I think recently somebody found another hack they could do, essentially jailbreaks it. And that is the ongoing struggle with these AI systems. How do you measure that ethicalness? How do you try to have the AI safeguard from, giving information to make people with malicious intentions do bad things.
Thank you so much. So I've seen that now, the many persons had called for them to be a halt, and now persons who are involved in AI, the Sam Altmans, the other persons who are involved heavily in it are looking to have standards, and as you mentioned, the ethical issues being addressed. One of the things that you mentioned in your presentation was that of health, and I know healthcare is a big problem within the Caribbean. Quality of care, the time, etc. And I'm thinking that that is probably where it is going to be most useful, where we can see artificial intelligence in the healthcare system. But we still need to have those ethics being addressed, and then privacy issues being addressed, because we are in the Caribbean, we are in a little ticklish position because the AI cannot get any better if you don't provide the data. So if you keep if you keep everything private, is not going to get better, but yet still you need to provide the information or the data to it. So it is a catch-21 situation there. Are you going to give it the data so that it gets better? Are you going to keep the data and then you're left behind? You'll never be able to probably solve things because it's able to solve things in terms of diseases. Just from my reading, things like DeepMind was able to produce a whole list of different protein structures, so that when it comes to being able to create medicines for diseases, etc., it could have done so much more quickly. So I'm hoping that that is one area in which the Caribbean is able to benefit, and given that we are sort of always behind, I'm hoping that we can have our own organization which addresses things like ethics, privacy, etc., when it comes to particularly things that are affecting us, such as probably healthcare, climate change, etc., etc. And there is a question in the chat which is saying, how does AI affect plagiarism? This feels like a gray area. Very, very good question. I will take a little stab at that, and then Nicholas, you can also chime in. So it is a little challenge where plagiarism is concerned. I wouldn't necessarily call it plagiarism, and the reason for that is for you to plagiarize something, it must be existing somewhere before. But the way in which ChatGPT works, it doesn't necessarily pull information from a work, a particular work that is out there, and it doesn't cite it, because plagiarism is the intended use, of pulling information or works from persons and not acknowledging it. But it doesn't, and you use that better, more or less wholly as yours. But what ChatGPT is doing is personally predicting what is the next word to come, etc., and it may pull it from a whole different set of sources. The problem is that you cannot find that single source on the internet. So has the student really plagiarized? I think it's unethical for them to produce something lock, stock, and barrel that has been generated as their own, but it might not necessarily be plagiarism. It might speak to that of intellectual property, and that is now an issue that is coming up, where because ChatGPT would have gotten OpenAI would have gotten all of that information from information that exists on the internet freely, by crawling the internet and getting the information. And now it's probably able to make use of that information, generate whatever money they're generating. So they're now putting things in place that would stop OpenAI from crawling or from getting information from the websites. And when it goes to things like images, you probably would have seen that. Let's say you have created an image and this is your design, your innovation. Because the artificial intelligence is being trained on so let's say you said, I'm going to create an image in the design of Nicholas, and it looks at all of Nicholas's designs and it creates something. That is definitely a gray, because it's sort of using Nicholas' work to create a new work. And sorry that I wasn't able to show it, because I know you're around the time. Nicholas, I'm going to let you take over soon. One of the things that I normally show is like creating a calypso in the using a spiralic calypso on anything, and then it basically pulls Sparrow and it creates and has the rhymes, etc. in the way that the mighty Sparrow would have done it. And that certainly is a great area where intellectual property is concerned. But for the plagiarism aspect of it, I know that those two might be used interchangeably, but intellectual property, copyright, etc., and the plagiarism, there's a little difference in terms of what you in terms of defining the two of those. But I do agree there is a gray area when it comes to copyright, intellectual property, etc. But for the plagiarism aspect, in relation to what students are doing, the students might be able at this point to argue, that they have not used anyone's work. And then the frequently asked and OpenAI claims that whatever is generated is that of the person who provided the prompt. But they have made a little change to that, so we'll see. Over to you, Nicholas, if you have anything more to add.
Yeah, and in terms of plagiarism in the academic sense, we are seeing research papers. So, at least where UWI is concerned, plagiarism is when there's some work, like some experiment or some truth that you find, and it's done by someone else, but you're taking it and you're presenting it as if you did it. That's the problem with plagiarism, right? It doesn't mean you can't use someone else's work, because that's how science works. You build on top of the people who came before you. But when you misrepresent where it originally came from, that's a problem, right? When it comes to like the places like Midjourney and whatnot, and art generation, that was a big issue, because artists are seeing their work appearing, or pieces of their work or attributes of their work appearing in the output of these generative models, but they didn't give that consent. So on that part of things, I think consent is very important. If you're making a model and you want to use my content, you must have my consent. You can't just take someone's artwork, at least in my opinion. I think that's a view that's held by a lot of artists. When it comes in the scientific and the academic, we are seeing papers where the co-authors is ChatGPT, because they're using the tool, and it is a good tool because that makes literature reviewer breathe. Because ChatGPT or the GPT is trained on so much data and so much work. Remember, it's in a sense, it's kind of like a representative of human knowledge. It can really help with writing these things. But again, you just can't misrepresent where that text came from, or where who really made the work to come up with that text result. So I think once you're transparent there, it should be okay. I know when it comes to there's a lot of work now with trying to safeguard essays, because as we saw, as Troy showed, it could pass exams and whatnot. I think really the challenge is on us as the educators and as the assessors to understand that it's a new world, there are new tools there. Some examination formats doesn't make sense anymore because it undermines the learning objectives. If I need you to write an essay, I could no longer give you a night to do it or 2 days to do it. I need to put you in an examination room where you're where you're being invigilated and you write your essay, because only then I could be sure it's not somebody completely different who's writing it on your behalf, right? So I just think when it comes against safeguarding against plagiarism, the whole weird thing of trying to detect if you use ChatGPT in an essay, just make them handwrite the essay in a room, and you can work with that, and you make the problem really simple. Captain?
Yes, I have a question. Mr. Mendez, I listened to you just now and you said that you do have instances where ChatGPT is listed as a co-author. In the academic space and in the classroom, is that accepted? So a student now, because when you look at what ChatGPT does, it doesn't co-author, it pretty much authors the article, the subject, the essay, and a student may decide to supplement it with citations. So in a case like that, you as an educator and Dr. Carrington as well, as also an educator at the tertiary level, are students really allowed to claim ChatGPT as a co-author in their academic submissions?
I don't know what UE policy on it that is right now. But even that has been really controversial because not like the scientific community is on board. Yeah, we can use ChatGPT, yeah, co-author ChatGPT, because now we have this weird thing how we have this super author that's working with all the authors and the impact rating will blow away all the scientists in the world because all the scientists are using it. So, and then are you really attributing it to OpenAI? So even then, it's still very murky. I don't know UE stands, but I know UE. I would think that UE will probably be a little bit hesitant, and they would take their time and evaluating where they will be. I think just to be safe, just work with known sources. If they're generating anything with ChatGPT, try to track down the truth. So if you found something in ChatGPT, ask ChatGPT where the site is, use a plugin, or you can then take it to Google Scholar, right? Because you need to verify it anyway, right? These language models could perform what we call hallucination, where it makes up things. So you can't take it wholesale anyway. You need to verify it. And then when you verify it, you actually find the source where it came from. You actually find the article. You could then look at the source, vet whether it's a good source, and then cite it in your work. So I think that's a more ethical engagement with the output of these models. Anything to add, Troy?
Thank you. I think you put it quite aptly. Pretty murky. Things are moving fairly quickly. In the beginning, ChatGPT wasn't generating references, and then it started to generate references. And as you saw, there are plugins that you can use, which gives access to some of the peer-reviewed articles. So it is something that is moving. I think we really need to, let students know what is really academic integrity. That is really core of what that we as an institution, and we as an institution, what university and other in educational institutions, what they stand for. But it is something that is being addressed, and we will see what happens. Some persons are using things like Turnitin because it can generate or show the level that they think that the artificial intelligence was used. It gives a percentage, but that is also still in, let's say, testing phase, and we'll see how it goes. But that's why we really call ChatGPT and what is being done a disruptive technology, because it's really changing a lot of the ways in which and how we did things previously. And as educators, we might need to change how we assess and a number of other things. But then they have the little challenge of, are we going to ban artificial intelligence in the classroom? And then when you get in the workplace, the employers expect you to know how to use artificial intelligence. So a lot to think about. Thanks. Thanks for that question, Rosemary. So I am not seeing any further questions. We'll hand over to Joachim, but I'm so happy that you were able to come to this session and get a further understanding of this artificial intelligence. That's it from me, really. I will post any of the other links, and I'm sure the recording will be made available with any of the resources that we think might be useful. Thank you so much.
Okay, so thank you again, everyone, for all the questions. I hope that our responses were satisfactory. Before we officially end our AI workshop, I would like to thank our presenters again for sharing their expertise and making this event so enriching. And of course, our participants for taking the time out to join us today. We'd also like to remind you guys of our exit survey, which was posted in the chat. So you could fill that out to help us improve for our future workshops. And yes, I hope that you guys have a good day. The rest of your day goes well. And thanks again for joining us today.